Seifert in studio, ESPN and ESPN.com. Super Bowl 60, I'm assuming will be on the Fan on Sunday. The Seattle Seahawks favored, last I saw, 4.5, 3.5, depending on which odds maker you're talking to, over the New England Patriots. One quarterback we coveted for New England, and one quarterback we had, and then we ultimately chose to go a different direction. Let's get back to the Daniel Jones part of this equation. I want to run a theory by you that I'm having a hard time going after Kwesi too hard on swinging and missing there because I'm not sure there's anything that any general manager could have done to get to a better ending, given what certainly appeared to be momentum that told Jones and his people, you might end up having a shot at this job, but you definitely have a shot from the beginning at the starting job in Indy because they're 2 years into their young guy. They're already ready to turn the page. So that's where I don't know that KOC or anybody else can necessarily blame Jones. What else? They never were willing, as far as I know, you can speak to this, to say to Jones, or did they ever say to Jones, you come back with us, the incumbent's gone. It's a wide open job. Play it out in training camp. They didn't give the impression that that was the direction they were going to go, did they?
No. And I think, I think there was probably a hope and an expectation that discussion could be finessed in a way that you're certainly not misleading him, but you're also not telling him more than might be the case. Because and we've talked about this, if Daniel Jones had signed here, I think he would have been the start. It's hard to imagine if everything else had played out the exact same way, if JJ's having the kind of camp he's having and Daniel Jones had the kind of camp that he had in Indy, that there would have been much of a mystery about who was ready to be the starter and best helped the team last season than him. And so that there's a lot of different ways to peel the apple there, and I don't know every detail about the discussions that happened with Daniel Jones, but I did sense, and it's not from any one person, but that there was some blame cast on Kwesi for not executing the attempt at an optimal level.
The sequencing was by then, once they find out Jones is not staying, they can't go backwards on Darnold, is what I thought you said, correct?
They certainly couldn't franchise him.
That's what I mean. Yeah, not the long.
That's really
that was the only compromise that was possible.
Yeah.
So A-Raj comes in after Jones moves on. Okay, so what do we know about the internal debates there? And again, do you have to be careful in your position? You've been doing this for a while now, where people feel a little emboldened once one guy's fired to maybe, speak almost out of turn in a way that they otherwise wouldn't, to cover their own rear end or to make them look better than the person who's already gone. Does any of that enter into what you have heard or what you believe about the Jones part of this between the two of them?
No, everything I know about
Rodgers part,
everything I know about either one of them really is pre-Kwesi being fired. And I know that there's this sense around, whoever's, reading the coverage, maybe just the fans and audience, I don't know, that the Vikings fired Kwesi and then all of a sudden turned the spigot on, the source spigot came on, and everybody started getting all this information that they didn't otherwise know, so they could make sure to put all the blame on Kwesi and trash him on his way out and make everybody else look good. And that's just not the case. And then I understand that people will then turn around and say, well, if you knew all this before he got fired, why didn't you report all this? Well, I did report a lot of the quarterback stuff that we're talking about now in the story towards the end of the year. And there's some other things that have come out that were learned pre-firing that, frankly, you didn't know what they meant. In every case, you hear that something happened in and of itself. Well, what's the context and what's it going to lead to? Right. Oh, he got fired. So I guess that what I heard is more important. So that's how that kind of information comes out now, even though it's not flowing suddenly out now, if that makes sense. And so in the case of Aaron Rodgers, they decided, and I think this was largely on the Kwesi side. I don't think it was only him, but a couple things that I think are potentially defensible. One is that his play had sort of deteriorated to an extent that he might take you to the playoffs, but you're not going to the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers, was their assessment. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I think right. that's how they felt about him, and that going to the playoffs and losing in the first round and second round with Aaron Rodgers would not be worth the delaying of J.J. McCarthy's ascension for another year at a time when they thought he would be able to play at a certain floor and then build from there. The mistake was that his floor was much lower. And the other part was, if you say, well, at least you could have Aaron Rodgers here for JJ to learn from for a year, but their feeling was that, at least some of the people in the building's feeling was that the offense would be so unique with Aaron Rodgers and the sort of the hand signals that he does and the unique ways that he plays the position that there wouldn't necessarily be as many transferable things from Aaron Rodgers to JJ McCarthy to get the benefit that you would hope. And again, defensible, debatable, maybe right, maybe wrong, but that's my understanding of why they didn't sign Aaron.
Well, I kept hearing, and I think we had Alec Lewis yesterday, and he's written this as well. The way he's, I think, termed it is there was great within the building sentiment for Rodgers. And I said to Alec, I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that in any debate or any of these personnel moves, you could pick any team in which there would be within the building. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that much to me. What matters is not what was within the building, but what were the two principals thinking? What were the decision makers, the general manager and the head coach? And was there any reason to believe there was a big difference of opinion in that regard? Where I mean, we're never going to get all these questions answered, obviously. But was there any reason to believe that KOC is saying, man, I'm ready to, I think I can get it out of A-Raj. I really think we should do it. And he was in effect overruled by the GM saying, we're not going to go there.
I don't know the answer to that. I think that he was probably less opposed to it, maybe. But I still, if he really, really, really wanted Aaron Rodgers, despite sort of those all the organizational objections, and you're right, there were other people who were not decision makers, but maybe prominent people who certainly thought that was a good idea, but I just don't have any information.
Was one of them B-Flow?
Yeah, I don't have any.
Well, I'm asking seriously.
I don't know. Okay. I don't know.
Because you know.
Huh?
I think you might know. I think you might have some indication, no? You have to protect. I know you have to protect your sources.
No, it's not a matter of I don't have it enough to be able to say one way or the other.
That's fair.
But there's certainly people of that level, and so prominent people, but not decision makers necessarily. And so, but the point is, I don't have any information to suggest that Kevin O'Connell was 2 feet on the table wanting to sign Aaron Rodgers and was told no.
Let's do bonus bucks right now. We got one more segment with Seifert. We'll get in a couple of other Vikings items, maybe a couple of National Football League controversies as well. What do you got?
Bank is the keyword for the 4 o'clock hour. The Fan wants to give you a shot to win bonus bucks. It is our national cash contest. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword bank.
Seifert is in studio for one more segment. I think we've already established in previous visits that whether Kwesi was still here or not, that the two major power brokers and players were in agreement, or seemed to be in agreement, that the Vikings could not accept having the same quarterback story play out the way it did a year ago. In other words, they do have to find a better option B, if you want to call that second option B, Sam Howell. That's a non-starter more than ever. The question to me becomes, beyond that, do you think KOC is worn down enough that he's going to be pushing, especially with no permanent general manager in place? He's going to be lobbying behind the scenes that we got to do something really aggressive, and add not just a maybe guy, but a guy that we think is pretty sure if I don't like what I see from McCarthy, even in training camp, that we're going a different direction as soon as then.
I think that was a potential on the list even before Kwesi got fired. I think that they, the way I put it was they were going to try to run back last year's plan and execute it better. In other words, to get a Daniel Jones type, or if not a Sam Darnold type, to go along with JJ, and that if JJ were going to be the starter, it would have been because he beat that person out, not because he performed, the best of a middling group. And so, but I will say that, you'd just be naive to see a general manager get fired and just assume that all the things that seemed clear prior to that point about the team's direction and approach and plan is going to remain the same and just be given to other people to execute. And that might end up being what the case is, that they'll just ask Rob Brzezinski to try to get them a quarterback that fits the definition we're talking about. But we also can't rule out that they could just go try to get Joe Burrow and say, what's it going to take?
That changes everything. Yeah. But if it's the latter, if it's the former, not the latter, if I say the name Marcus Mariota, is he high enough caliber to match what you think, at least in their best case scenario, they are going to be able to add to the quarterback room?
Be able to add, or what they want to add?
Well, maybe what they want to add.
No, I think, and there's a connection between him and O'Connell. I don't know if that's what you're referencing or not. But
not necessarily.
He trained Marcus pre-draft when O'Connell was kind of in that role where he was training people for their pro days and all that. So they have a personal relationship. But anyway, I think their thought was that for somebody more significant than that, somebody who, again, is genuinely competitive with McCarthy and at the very worst forces McCarthy to raise his level significantly in order to remain the starter. And that in the same way that I think either Daniel Jones would have either pushed McCarthy to be better or more likely beaten him out.
Yeah.
And so I think they're in a position where I don't think anyone in the organization has given up on J.J. McCarthy, but I also don't think that they're willing to stake their short-term future on his development, his immediate development either. And so I think that the person that they want, and there's not a lot of options out there in the traditional sense right now, that's why I've always said, there's only one man that can save us, and that's Kirk Cousins. And, but it's somebody like that. Kirk was playing pretty decent at the end of last year, and assuming there's no physical decline, between then and the start.
God, that'd be hilarious.
That's the type. Then you say that's a type, but then how many, even at the level of Kirk Cousins are there? Do you put Mac Jones at that
spot? Right,
that's
what I was going to name.
And so
next.
Somebody to me, that's on the lower end, because I don't see. There's never been a time when he's been a proven, 17-game starter. He did well, and so maybe he got the magic 49ers pixie dust, sprayed on him the same way Sam Darnold did, and the same situation could play out. But you're talking about a coach going into his fifth season. It's not time to experiment. It's time to find somebody that's on a proven level. And I think that's wherever that comes from, or however that shakes out. That's if they end up with Marcus Mariota, he's a fine backup, but there's nobody in the NFL who thinks Marcus Mariota should be starting, 17 games, this season.
He feels like a backup. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what you're looking for. This is from 701 guy. Did Kwesi not execute on Jones due to his, quote, unusual work hours? That's our intro into that part of the subject, which you've explored in at least one of your pieces, maybe a couple of them as well.
No, I don't think that's the reason. I think that there was if you want to call it inexperience, you want to call it just skill set. Like, I think there was just an inability
or
to
circumstances.
To
Again, I still think it's not going to be
easy, and he was uphill. And again, I don't know every detail that went on there, but I did pick up on the expectation that people thought that more should have been done there.
So, in general, on the work hours part, that was really the point of reading it. Is it reintroduces that subject?
Yeah.
Where does that? It's got to start with the draft, but in the end. You wrote a lot about detachment, at least a perception on the part of, I think, ownership or maybe other people within the building who told ownership that there's too much detachment here. It's too, shall we say, modern or too out of the box compared to what we're used to here, because you still got to work with people and you can't just be in the room with all the numbers. So, where does that enter into this demise, do you think?
I think, it falls under the umbrella of inexperience. Like, I don't, like, he'd worked for NFL teams for 9 years or so before he got hired here. And I think that he saw how people worked, but he was also hired, to change the culture and to be different and to approach things in a different way. And it gets back to the question is, were the Vikings structured to support somebody doing that sort of thing? But, I think that I don't think it led to like a lot of personal animosity. I don't think people hated each other as a result of that, but it was kind of like, you need the experience to be able to read the room and understand, like, this might be what in theory I'm trying to model, or in theory what I'm trying to do, but is it working, and is it the right thing for this particular job? And so, I think that's what I'd say about that.
Was the J.J. McCarthy to the Raiders trade rumor accurate? Have you heard anything to that effect?
I mean, I heard that it was a rumor, but
this goes back to last offseason? When was this supposedly?
I don't even know, but I thought the rumor was that he was about to trade. He was trying to trade J.J. McCarthy to the Raiders like this week, and that's why he got fired.
Okay, okay.
No information to know that that's anything other than a made-up rumor.
Real quick before we go, I haven't heard you, and I don't know if you've even had a chance, given all the stuff that you're working on or have had to work on, regarding the Hall of Fame scenario, which ultimately I view more as a sign of a bad system than I do any kind of conspiracy against Bill Belichick, and I guess Bob Kraft allegedly didn't make it either. So I just feel like it should be a purer system where you don't have the temptation that I think now exists to say, well, I got old timers, I like these guys, and I don't know how many more opportunities they're going to have to be finalists, so I'm going for them because I know that Belichick's going to get in. And I obviously know Bob Kraft is going to get in. What do you make of it?
Yeah, they clearly, and this is the Bob Kraft thing probably confirms it if it wasn't confirmed after the Belichick thing, that the Hall of Fame created a process to try to make sure that it's the Hall of Fame and not the Hall of Really Good, and they overdid it, and it led voters to overthink some things and to try to use the process to pursue some agendas that maybe weren't in the best interest of getting the best class in this particular year, and they're clearly going to have to change it. There's been way too many of the voters publicly saying that, and the voters themselves don't have the ability to change the process. But if your group is in revolt, you need to address that. The Hall of Fame has a board of directors that deals with those sort of things, and I think it's pretty clear that they're going to change the process. And that, whether that means that both of those guys get in next year or not, I don't know, because we don't know what the new process is, but they will change the process to avoid having situations where one of the top, if there's a 5-person class, that those 5 people are the best 5 that were on the ballot this year.
Give me from your
next year.
Give me from your perspective the most intriguing name to become the next, outside this organization, general manager or president of football operations, whatever you want to say it, for your Minnesota Vikings.
Well, I mean, the name that this keeps coming up is George Paton, and to me, that's intriguing. Not because we know him, he was, but it's just, it creates the ultimate NFL pendulum. I mean, Rick Spielman, right-hand man, going not back just to Miami, not going back to Chicago. I mean, going all the way back to when he was at Chicago was George Paton. And so when Rick Spielman got hired here in 2006, he had to wait a year to get George out of his contract. But I think 2007, he brings in George as his right-hand man. And so you would be going from a decade and a half of Rick Spielman to 4 years of a very polar opposite in every way, to pendulum all the way back to Rick Spielman Jr., basically. And so I know that would be the friendly, nice, fun addition. And I'm sure all the people in the building would be happy because George is a really good human being, and you could do a lot worse with having someone of his character at the top of your front office. But I question whether that's the, what the point of almost basically 2 decades of Vikings history would be if you're basically just going from Rick Spielman back to Rick Spielman eventually. And so that jumps out to me. And also, I think we have to, if George becomes an actual candidate, I think we have to look at the body of work when he was in Denver before Sean Payton got there. I mean, the Russell Wilson trade, coaching hires, not very good. And so I think that, and I'm sure there were more circumstances
but those are important.
And more reasons why those things happened, and how much was in his control or ownership or what have you. But it's that and I'm not saying new is better or different is better. We found, I think they kind of went in that direction the past 4 years and found out that it isn't always better. But there would be a lot of questions in my mind if they end up with a process that gets them back to where they were 4 years ago.
Has the Rooney Rule failed?
The Rooney Rule has not failed because the point of the Rooney Rule is to surface and require owners to at least have an audience with a diverse group. What the Rooney Rule can't do, and what you can't either legally or morally or whatever, is force the decisions that the owners make. And you can't. I mean, I'm sure there's been times when people have been leaned on, but you can't force a group of 32 subsidiary companies to make a certain percentage of hires in any particularly ethnicity. And you have to, the most you can do as a league office is require that they have a diverse set of candidates, and do your best to create the best pool of those candidates. And that's one thing that maybe didn't happen this year because they put on hiatus their accelerator program that sort of connects those candidates with the decision makers in a less urgent way. But you can't force these owners to think differently than the way they're going to think. And that is not just true in the NFL. It's not just true in sports. It's everything. And so you can stand on the table and say diversity is good. It makes sure that you're picking, you have a better chance of making a great hire when your pool of candidates is as diverse as possible. But you can't force any owner to make a decision based on that particular set of circumstances.
Lastly, we're running a little late. Gleeman is chomping at the bit. He's ready to go. I'm going to give you a little advice. You probably don't need it. It's not like you're a pup in this business. But it occurs to me that moving forward, one of the tricks that you might want to consider, the next time you write a more analytical piece, for example, about the Vikings and maybe where they're headed in terms of GM, if you headline it, "What I'm Hearing," this is the new game that's apparently being played at The Athletic. I've noticed it. It's the what I'm hearing is put literally in the headline. And
Really?
then it can be, absolutely. What I'm hearing about Giannis to the Wolves. What I'm hearing about James Harden to the Cavaliers. That's the new thing. I'm sure there have been studies on this where, whoa, what he's hearing or what she's hearing. I got to read that. So, far be it from me to tell you're with the ESPN empire.
Yeah.
But I think you guys might be lagging behind
It sounds like
in that regard.
A great SEO, search engine optimization. Maybe somebody Googles
what I'm hearing.
What is Dan Barrero hearing?
That's it.
And if you had a headline of that, it'll bring you right there.
Just saying. In fact, I'm guessing Gleeman's got one coming very soon on the Twins, if he hasn't done it already. But that's the new thing. I've seen it I think 6 times in the last 3 weeks in the Athletic.
I'll forward it up the chain.
Yeah, think about it. Thanks for coming.
Okay, Dan.
Kevin Seifert, ESPN.com. I mentioned Gleeman is in the house. We might touch on the Twins, but what if we end up talking more Wolves or even soccer? We'll explain when we come back. Next guest has come a long way from being the blogger in the basement. And I don't even know if you ever blogged in your basement, but that was the reputation. Remember those days?
I never had a real basement. My mother's house did not have a basement.
The image of our next guest, Aaron Gleeman, was no accountability because he writes about everything in his underwear, in the basement, and he's got empty pizza boxes all around him. That's Chinese food in this case. You're exactly right. And that was it. I feel like you've come a long way from that, no matter how fair or unfair that image might have been. But to me, the ultimate test for me regarding sort of your ascension is whether you have yet been granted the opportunity to write under the headline in The Athletic, "This is what I hear," or "I'm hearing this," because I saw it from Johnny, Athletic, as it pertains to Giannis. I saw it from somebody from The Athletic. I don't know if they're based in either Cleveland or in Los Angeles about James Harden coming to somebody has decided that's the way you get people's attention. This is what I hear. Have you had a chance to write "This is what I hear" for The Athletic?
This is what I hear. The Twins are doing nothing.
Yeah,
is that? Wow, there's a clickbait. My version of that is because I'm on the beat with Dan Hayes, who's my partner on the beat, and he's much more of a traditional beat reporter, where I'm more of a analysis or column or opinion, whatever. They will, like I wrote about the Falvey exit the other day, and they'll slap the Gleeman colon as the beginning of the headline.
So that's not bad.
So that people know, don't blame Dan Hayes for just the level of BS or analysis or opinion, however you view it, that is contained in this. So I guess that's my version. The only the big ascension, it's 20-something years later. Basically, I now am able to sit around my own house in my underwear with the empty containers.
That's the beauty of it.
It's really no different.
It's not changed.
Once in a while, you got to go to Target Field or something and throw a press pass something. But
I think the more accurate headline, to be precise, is "What I'm hearing." That's what you should say. What I'm
definitely
hearing.
Right,
Whoa.
Because it's intriguing, right?
And it kind of is, but my position is if you go with it every time, probably it's going to start losing its impact. It's a little bit like the breaking news sounder or the breaking news, message on CNN. If you go with it constantly, people start yawning and they are just not even thinking what's really breaking news.
I'm just in my head envisioning scenarios where there's anything the Twins would even be in the mix for doing. I mean, that's the part, and I'm sure we're going to get into this, but they've made a few very low wattage moves, obviously, but the lack of even them being linked to trade rumors or free agent rumors for the last several months is really kind of shocking to me. And that's coming from someone who's covered the Twins basically for 20 years, where there's certainly been years like this. This is sort of standard for them, where the lack of spending overall and the payroll's low and all that stuff, underwhelming off seasons. But even in most of those, there's at least, some national report from Ken Rosenthal or Bob Nightingale or something where it's like, the Twins are, kicking the tires on this guy.
Some peripheral reference.
I haven't even seen that. And, from our standpoint, we're trying to report and speculate and stuff. And believe me, if we heard this stuff, we would report it, possibly under the headline that you were just talking about. But it's been so just like tumbleweeds rolling through as an offseason. And it's possible even, there's a week and a half till I head down to spring training and they'll be there. But it's possible they sign a reliever or something like that. I think they still would like to do that. But the thing is, and they will tell you, Tom Pohlad, for instance, did a media thing not like last week.
We're going to get to that, yeah.
And one of the things he said was, I still think there's room to add here. And he said, and Falvey said before he left, the bullpen, a right-handed reliever, is really like the most glaring weakness that everyone has identified for months now. Here's the problem with that. I'm willing to believe that they want to add a right-handed reliever, and I'm maybe even willing to believe they've got $3 million or even, let's go nuts, $5 million. There are no good right-handed relievers left unsigned, other than maybe like rehab project guy coming back from Tommy John surgery. But like if you looked at the top 25 relievers, free agent, at the beginning of the offseason, literally all 25 have signed. So that's where I'm at with it. Is like, okay, I'll believe it when I see it on the spending, but also what's left to spend on.
What would excite Aaron Gleeman more?
Okay.
The Loons signing Colombian soccer star James Rodriguez, or the Timberwolves trading for Giannis?
So it's close because the one guy I've heard of for 4 seconds now. I did see Lavelle tweeting about
he's
some big...
He's excited, and I'm going on the same thing with Lavelle. I've never heard of him, but everybody's saying that he would easily be the biggest, it'd be the most seismic signing in the history of the Loons. Now, maybe that's faint praise. I don't know.
Can we do the new Lavelle bit? The big splash. It was meant for the Twins, but we'll do it with the Loons.
Big splash. What if we get them both and we got Quinn Hughes... I mean, we're no longer flyover country at that point.
We're going to get Sidney Crosby right after the Olympics.
Crosby, correct. Think about it.
This is sad, and this is coming from someone who covers the Twins, so keep that in mind. But is it sad that I saw Lavelle tweet something about some star guy going to the Loons, and I thought, why would he do that? Like, why would the guy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, not because but like, why MLS? I know Messi's in MLS now, but yeah. No,
we're trying to upgrade.
I've gotten very good over the years of like having dinner with Lavelle at Target Field or something, and just sort of nodding along as he talks about international soccer. Because I used to try to ask questions, and then I realized like I don't really care enough to fake it, and also he's just going to go on. But yeah, I don't know, Loons fans, excuse me. It's exciting, I guess. But Giannis is intriguing. And then, of course, I'm sure you guys mentioned this already, but the salary dump of Conley.
You're supposed to be the guest today at 3 o'clock.
I know. I thought he was kidding. I thought JG was kidding, but he said that was legit.
He was really booked right at the top of the show.
For about an hour.
Another bumper-to-bumper regular athlete guest gone. It is a curse. It's now we'll have to add them up. I think we're up to 8.
Yeah.
Maybe 9.
Well, and this year has been a bumper year. We lost Thielen in the middle of the year.
That's true.
And then we lose Conley.
Yeah.
Our non-athletic guests never leave.
No.
We've had them for decades, including Lavelle, including Seifert. And Gleeman, you're part of that.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere.
Our non-athletes are locked in. There seems to be no danger. But
that would have been amazing radio for you to read the tweet to Conley.
Yeah,
he's leaving.
I know.
I still wanted to have him on, but Guardsy was bored with it. I thought, you got his number.
I do.
Text him.
I have.
Oh, you have?
I mean, first, I like to say, hey,
of course.
Thanks for everything.
Of course, yes. Got to be humane about it.
I try to be.
Yeah, at least somebody's got to on this show.
He's probably already on, what is it, The Score or something in Chicago?
Probably. He's probably got a regular gig there.
Mike Mulligan just did a great interview with him.
That's probably true. Well, the key question there, of course, is that the precursor? But the way it's been explained to me so far is it's not impossible that that's a move because they save, what was it, $23 million? They're under now not just the second apron, the first apron. Conley's future here it was over. I mean, let's face it.
Which is sad. I tweeted this before I got in the car to come over here, but like he is really one of my favorite Wolves of all time. Like he was such a perfect fit when he came over, and he was already, into his 30s at that point. And I remember watching, first dozen games he played and thinking, how much fun must he have been to watch for Utah fans or especially Memphis fans?
Yeah.
To be like, to get this 82 times a year.
Yes.
And just the consistency of it. And this year, we saw it last year on the decline. This year, it kind of became, sadly, like unplayable. But yeah, I mean, it saves them a bunch of money, ownership-wise.
Yes.
And it also opens up a few more avenues to like aggregate salaries
Exactly
and stuff
right.
like that. But it could also just be a salary dump.
It could end up being a salary
Or it
dump.
could be part of the biggest trade anybody's seen.
However, see, and this is, we're going to hear this from some of the poll ad apologists. It's going to be, funny that Wolves do a salary dump. We don't hear anything about it. And I'd say, well, I can actually live, given how much they have spent, and I get it, it's new ownership. But with this kind of salary dump, given Mike Conley's future is either way, you can see it. He's somewhat limited. Hopefully, it does lead to something else. Who knows? It's too early to tell.
And the reason it saves them, it was like $22 million or something.
Correct.
I think I saw on Twitter, but is because they were over the luxury tax threshold already, which is a reality that the Twins will never have to face under this ownership.
Yeah. I think now our luxury tax drops from 24 mil to 3.8 million. That's a massive drop, and it does give you more flexibility to move some things around. But here's before we get, and we will get to the Twins, obviously, but you're a Wolves guy, so where are you on? Because there's no question that minimum to get this deal done, you're giving up two of the following three players. Randall, whom else am I forgetting?
Reed McDaniel.
Reed McDaniel. Yeah. You're giving up automatically two of those. You might have to give up all three of those. And there are people who say, wait a minute, what are you left with? Right. You may end up with two of the 7 best players in the league, but if you're gutted elsewhere, what's the point? So are you squeamish, or do you say, no, I'm all in? I'm in Conley, as in Tim Conley, I trust. Right. He's going to get one other player back in one of these, if it's a 3 or 4 team deal, that's going to be a rotation player as well. So what do you say?
It is funny that one of the, I would say, weaknesses of this year's team, and that's made them so frustrating, is after you get past like 6 or 7, they don't have much there.
They have nothing going right now.
Shannon and Dillingham haven't been able to step forward.
Correct.
And this would obviously magnify that to a great extent. My feeling is, if you actually have a sense, either he said it or you just feel like it, that you can get Giannis to finish his career here.
Yes.
And, he's 31, I think, or 32. I would say you got probably 3 more superstar years, let's hope. Mm-hmm. Then I would be willing to take it's a massive risk. I mean, it can go horribly. We've seen this with trying to kind of put together superstar duos like this, and the problem is you just don't have the depth. But I feel like, I don't know that this year's team was going to be able to topple OKC, let alone some other people, because of some of the problems. So you're sort of have the same depth problem, except now you, like you said, you have 2 of the top 10 players in the entire league. I also, here's the other thing. I don't know that you can really play Rudy and Giannis together. They'd be amazing defensively, obviously.
Yes.
But neither of them can shoot. And what works with either Rando or Naz paired with Rudy is that Naz especially is just launching threes. But if you're playing Giannis with Rudy, they're just going to pack the paint at that point, and then you're back to some of the issues that Wolves had in years past where they didn't have enough shooting. So I guess my feeling, I love McDaniels. I think Naz Reid's one of the most likable players in Wolves history, and Randall has been very good and much better than I expected him to be when they made that trade. But I do think if you can get in their prime, first ballot Hall of Fame, inner circle guy, you kind of have to do it. And like you said, there's going to be enough cap matching situations where I'm sure you can get some playable wing or something like that back. But yeah, it is scary. And I also just wonder, because my assumption, you listed the 3 guys, my assumption is nobody really wants Rudy as part of that deal. And I just don't know if that's making what is already a difficult roster fit even worse, because then Rudy's clearly your 3rd best player. It's not like you're not going to play him, but then your offense gets a little weird at that point.
Offense gets weird. He's playing great defensively this year. That's the irony of it. I've been schooled by Pele himself. Laval says Rodriguez's first name is pronounced James.
Okay.
James Rodriguez. So I apologize to the soccer community if I did not know that. There's the Laval big splash. So we'll see. We'll keep you informed. If Johnny has anything, you're monitoring all the wires, Guardsy, I'm assuming, because we got the trade deadline is Thursday at 2:00. But,
I'm anticipating a 6:32 Shams bomb.
That could happen.
That's what I'm anticipating. We'll be in the car.
Yeah.
Gargi and I talked about this yesterday, and you could appreciate this too because you've been around long enough, I think, to get this part of it. On the one hand, leaving aside whether they get him or whether the price is too high, whatever the case may be, the thing that we now take for granted should never be taken for granted if you have any history with the Minnesota Timberwolves like I do, which goes back to when they first started this whole franchise. The notion that a two-time MVP, one of the best players in the world, I don't know if he's top 50, I don't know if he made whatever. Giannis is a terrific basketball player, has said, according to all sources that we trust, he would not be opposed to and might even be excited by going to the Minnesota Timberwolves franchise is so mind-boggling for those of us who remember, for example, the Jimmy Rogers era of Wolves basketball. Scotty Roth, Pooh Richardson,
Shane Heel,
Kurt Rambis,
Gundars
David
Vetra.
Kahn, Gundars Vetra, the names.
This could kill about 8 segments.
That's true. Should never be taken for granted.
Yeah.
It's such a contrast with the larger history of this organization that people should never just yawn about the fact that we're in that mix, right?
I mean, even, what was it now, 4 or 5 years ago when they made the Gobert trade, one of the things people said at that point, and Conley might have even said it at that point, was we're not going to be able to sign, even if we had the cap space, a 5-time All-Star, multi-time Defensive Player of the Year. Like, those guys are not viewing Minnesota as a destination. And I still think that's largely true. You're not going to get a superstar to outright choose Minnesota. But even compared to 5 years ago, what you're saying, I think, is absolutely right, which is just the idea that Giannis could be presented with some possibilities and go, yeah, I wouldn't mind Miami, maybe New York, and Minnesota wouldn't be bad. Although maybe that's part of it, living in Milwaukee all this time. I think it is a good prep to be like, listen, it's not like he's been playing in Miami this whole time or LA or something like that. But yeah, it is a big, if you would have told childhood me going to Wolves games, 20 years ago or whatever, that I think certainly one of the top 50 players of all time is going to be like, yeah, I would be fine with Minnesota. I'd be like, what happened? What do they have on him that he's willing to do that?
The other piece of this that I appreciate that we have not discussed as much is having a general manager or a president of basketball operations with the chops, the history, the gravitas to understand how to explore that possibility and to have the cojones to say, if I feel like we get to that sweet spot, I ain't worried. I will do it. That also should not be taken for granted, especially in this town, one could say.
Especially because, in the moment, the Gobert trade, I thought, wasn't super popular. I know I looked at it as an overpay. Not that it was a disastrous trade. And then obviously the Cat for Randall, et cetera, trade was a shocker, but also people were like, really? And not that they've won, titles from that, but I think in both of those cases, even a critic of those moves would have to admit they worked out a lot better than most people thought. And so I do think not only has he established a rep for taking big swings and actually getting stuff done, as opposed to some other teams where it's like, oh, we finished runner-up for this guy is a common thing. But I also think he's earned a little bit of credit where it's like, well, I'm willing to let this play out.
Right,
even if people are
least,
listening to us and like, don't trade everyone for Giannis. I think in the back of people's minds, like, well, I didn't love the Gobert trade. I didn't love the Cat trade. Those both worked out pretty well.
All right, top of the hour pause. We will talk baseball, although part of the reason I think we haven't spent as much time on that story as we have the Vikings culture chasm is it's hard to know why one would invest all that much time and trouble in whatever the Viking or the Twins are cooking up or whatever led to the in this case, the divorce between Falvey and ownership, the rest of the organization, et cetera. So we'll get to many of those items. We got a lot of good texts already coming in. Gleeman for another half hour, and Louie will join at about 5:30.